There was a time when the future felt limitless, when a single television show invited millions of people to look up at the stars and believe that humanity could be better. Star Trek wasn't just a sci-fi series. It was a promise, a vision of unity, exploration, and hope. But behind the polished bridge of the Enterprise, behind the uniforms, the missions, and the iconic lines, were real people living lives far more complicated than anything written in the scripts. While Captain Kirk led his crew through distant galaxies, the actors themselves were facing fame they never expected, personal battles they couldn't escape, and tragedies that no audience ever saw coming. Because the truth is, the real stories of Star Trek are not just about space exploration. They're about survival, identity, loss, and reinvention. And some of those stories are far more dramatic than anything that ever aired on television. So before we go any further, take a moment and tell me, which Star Trek character defined your childhood? Was it the fearless captain, the logical outsider, or the loyal crew member who always held things together? Because as we dive deeper into their lives, you might never see them the same way again. When Star Trek, the original series, first premiered in 1966, few could have predicted what it would become. At the time, it was just another ambitious show trying to survive in a competitive television landscape. Ratings were modest. Network support was shaky. And after only 3 seasons, it was canceled, quietly fading from prime time as if its journey had come to an end. But something unexpected happened. In reruns, the show found a second life, then a third. Audiences began to grow, not shrink. Fans connected deeply with its message of diversity, exploration, and hope for the future. What once seemed like a failed experiment slowly transformed into a cultural movement. Conventions put it as. Devoted followers memorized every line, and the cast, once just working actors, became legends. Yet behind that growing legacy, their lives continued in ways the cameras never captured. Fame didn't guarantee happiness. Icon status didn't erase personal struggles. And while the world saw them as heroes of the final frontier, they were still navigating very human journeys back here on Earth. For many viewers, the bridge of the Enterprise felt like the future we all hoped for. And no one represented that future more powerfully than Nichelle Nichols. As Uhura, she wasn't just a communications officer. She was a symbol. At a time when television rarely gave Black women meaningful roles, she stood at the center of one of the most progressive shows ever made. Calm, intelligent, and essential to the mission, Uhura quietly changed what audiences believed was possible. But what made her story even more remarkable happened off-screen. Encouraged by Martin Luther King Jr. himself to remain on the show, Nichols later took that same spirit into the real world. She partnered with NASA, helping recruit women and minorities into the astronaut program. Her influence reached far beyond television, shaping the very future Star Trek once imagined. While her personal life remained largely private compared to others, her legacy became one of quiet strength, dignity, and lasting impact. Then there was George Takei, the man behind Sulu, whose calm presence on screen hid a childhood marked by injustice. Long before he ever stepped onto the Enterprise, Takei lived through one of the darkest chapters in American history. As a child, he and his family were placed in internment camps during World War II, a memory that would shape his identity for the rest of his life. That experience stayed with him, quietly influencing everything he did. While Star Trek gave him global recognition, his true voice emerged decades later. In 2005, Takei publicly came out as gay, becoming a powerful advocate for LGBTQ+ rights. What followed was an unexpected second act. Not just as an actor, but as a cultural voice, using humor, honesty, and social media to reach millions. His journey wasn't defined by scandal, but by resilience. A steady transformation from actor to activist. And then we come to Walter Koenig, the young face of Chekhov, the optimistic ensign who quickly became a fan favorite. Introduced during the show's second season, Koenig brought youthful energy to the crew, instantly connecting with audiences. But like many actors tied to an iconic role, success came with a hidden cost. After Star Trek, he faced the difficult reality of typecasting. Casting directors saw Chekhov, not Walter Koenig. Roles became harder to secure, and the momentum of early fame slowly faded. But instead of walking away, he adapted. Koenig turned to writing, working behind the scenes, and gradually rebuilding his place in the industry. His journey wasn't filled with headlines or scandals, but with persistence. The quiet determination to keep going even when the spotlight dimmed. As we move deeper into these stories, I have to ask you, who was your favorite member of the Enterprise crew? And more importantly, did you ever stop to wonder what their lives were really like once the cameras stopped rolling? Behind the engine room of the Enterprise stood a man whose warmth and humor made him unforgettable, James Doohan. To millions, he was Scotty, the miracle worker who could fix anything under pressure. But long before he ever stepped onto that set, Doohan had already lived a life more intense than most war films could capture. During World War II, he served as a soldier and was severely wounded in combat, losing a finger and carrying the physical and emotional scars for the rest of his life. It was something he rarely spoke about, yet it shaped the resilience fans would later see in his performances. Fame brought admiration, but his personal life was far from simple, marked by multiple marriages and complicated relationships. And yet, despite it all, his connection with fans never faded. Even after his passing, that bond remained so strong that some of his ashes were carried into space. A final journey that felt fitting for a man who helped define the stars for an entire generation. Then there was DeForest Kelley, the man who gave heart and humanity to Dr. McCoy. Before Star Trek, Kelley had spent years building a steady career, often playing tough or villainous characters in westerns. But it was McCoy, emotional, compassionate, and deeply human, that changed everything. And yet, that success came with a quiet cost. Like many of his co-stars, Kelley struggled with typecasting after the show ended. Offers became limited, and the industry seemed unsure of how to see him beyond the role that made him famous. Unlike others, he didn't chase reinvention aggressively. Instead, he embraced a quieter life, finding meaning in the connection he shared with fans. Those who met him often spoke about his kindness, how he genuinely listened, how he made each person feel seen. His story wasn't filled with scandal or chaos, but with something more subtle. A life defined by humility, loyalty, and an enduring emotional bond with the audience. But perhaps no one embodied the internal conflict of Star Trek more deeply than Leonard Nimoy. As Spock, he became one of the most iconic characters in television history, a symbol of logic, restraint, and the constant struggle between emotion and reason. What many didn't realize was how closely that struggle mirrored Nimoy's own life. At the height of Star Trek's fame, he found himself trapped between gratitude and frustration. Spock brought him global recognition, but it also threatened to define him completely. He once famously declared that he felt consumed by the character, as if Leonard Nimoy himself was disappearing behind pointed ears and a raised eyebrow. That tension led to a deeper personal battle, including struggles with alcoholism as he tried to cope with the pressures of fame and identity. But Nimoy's story didn't end there. Over time, he found a way to reclaim himself through photography, writing, directing, and eventually returning to Spock on his own terms. What was once a source of conflict became a source of peace. He didn't reject the character, he embraced it. And in doing so, he showed that even the most internal struggles can lead to transformation. And then, there is the man who stood at the very center of it all, William Shatner. To the world, he was Captain Kirk, bold, confident, always in control. But behind that commanding presence was a life filled with extreme highs and devastating lows. Shatner's career was anything but steady. After Star Trek ended, he faced periods of financial hardship so severe that he reportedly lived out of a truck while trying to rebuild his career. The fame he once held didn't guarantee stability, and Hollywood could be unforgiving. Over time, he fought his way back, reinventing himself again and again, through television, film, writing, even music. But the most heartbreaking chapter came much later. In 1999, his wife, Noreen Kidd, tragically passed away in an accident that left Shatner devastated. It was a loss that shook him deeply, a reminder that even the strongest figures can be broken by grief. And yet, somehow, he continued moving forward. What makes Shatner's story so compelling isn't just the struggle, it's the persistence. Decades after Star Trek, he continued to work, to explore new opportunities, to redefine himself in ways few actors ever manage. Even into his later years, he reached milestones no one expected, proving that the journey never truly ends. Because in the end, while Captain Kirk explored the unknown reaches of space, William Shatner was navigating something far more unpredictable: real life itself. And when you step back and look at it all, it's almost poetic. The cast of Star Trek began as explorers of distant fictional galaxies, charting stars that didn't exist, facing dangers written in scripts, and imagining a future that felt impossibly far away. But their real journeys, those were far more unpredictable. Some found lasting success. Some struggled in silence. Some faced loss, identity crises, or the weight of fame they never asked for. Their lives didn't follow a single path. They scattered in different directions, shaped by choices, circumstances, and time itself. And yet, through all those differences, they remained forever connected by something bigger than any one of them. Because together, they created more than just a television show. They created a legacy. A story that continues to inspire generations to look beyond their limits, to stay curious, and to believe that a better future is always possible. And maybe that's why Star Trek still matters today. So if this journey brought back memories, or showed you a side of these legends you never knew before, take a moment to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Because there are still so many untold stories waiting to be discovered. And this is just the beginning.